All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming to the webinar that we organize with Sharesight and Pearler. And if you guys got any questions during the webinar, just feel free to kind of put it into the Q&A display, and I'll try to answer all of the questions as much as I can. So yeah, so we'll just jump into the webinar. So again, this webinar is mainly kind of talking about, between Pearler and Sharesight and how to kind of get tax ready using Sharesight. So, before I jump into the information, again, just kind of a disclaimer that this, webinar is for informational purposes only. Doesn't constitute any recommendation, taxation, or financial advice. So again, always talk to your advisors or accountant to get the correct advice that is relevant to your situations. So just kind of briefly on, I guess, a couple of things that we're gonna cover today. So I guess as a start, just basically on how Pearler and Sharesight kind of work together, and basically talking a little bit about the transferred assets. So basically, if you have any investments or holdings that you transferred from another brokers into Pearler, so I'll just quickly go through that on how you can handle that. Dividend reinvestments, if you have that, how do you set it up on Sharesight? And the last one is, which is I guess the main point, is the tax reporting in Sharesight, and we can go into like the Q&A sessions as well. So as a beginning, so if you're not, I guess if you're not familiar with Sharesight, or if you are new to Sharesight, I'll just kind of walk you through kind of how to set up the integration between Pearler and Sharesight. So all your, I guess all your buy and sales from Pearler will get recorded in Sharesight. So again, there's a couple of things, and we'll just kind of go through that as we go. So the first one is basically how do you link Pearler into Sharesight. So this is my own Pearler account that doesn't have any money in there, but I'll just use this as examples. So in your Pearler account, on the top right side, under your profile icon, so if you go in there, there's settings, and in settings, right under account settings, you can see there's like third-party integrations. So you click that. Well, because I haven't bought or sell any shares on Pearler, so I don't have the options, but basically you can see there will be a button that says connect to Sharesight. So you just need to click that, follow the prompts and the steps to set up the integration. So the integration is very straightforward. Once you connect that, all your buy and sales that you've done with at Pearler will get pushed into Sharesight. So once you've done that, I guess the first thing, obviously, before you even get to the point of running your tax reports, is you want to make sure that all your transactions are coming into Sharesight. So basically, everything in Sharesight matches what is in your Pearler account. So just using this is what Sharesight portfolio will look like. Using this as an examples, I think the best way is to kind of quickly double check to make sure that every holdings that is in your Pearler matches up with what is in Sharesight and their respective kind of quantity, right? So make sure, like for example, Amazon like 100 shares, BHP 200 shares, and just kind of quickly go through the list just to make sure all the holdings in Sharesight and Pearler lines up, and the quantity as well lines up. Now and hopefully that is the case. There will be some circumstances where the quantity might be different, or some holdings might be missing, and that's when you kind of have to dig a little bit deeper. So, but in general, if some of the holdings or quantity are sort of like off or incorrect, there could be a couple of reasons, like transfer assets, DRPs, which I'll go through that in a bit more details later on. So those are, I guess, kind of I guess just to kind of explain, so when you set up your connection between Pearler and Sharesight, Pearler will only push all your market buy and market sales that you did at Pearler into Sharesight. So if you have any off-market transactions like transfer assets or dividend reinvestments, those those doesn't come through to Sharesight. Or if you have any corporate actions, or if you have like shares or investments that get delisted, or they get delisted because they get acquired by another companies, or they went into administrations, or other things like they get merged or they get acquired, or there's like a demerger that you end up getting some new shares. So those kind of transactions would not show up in Sharesight, which would causes the quantity to be different. So, so just kind of give you an examples, coming back to the portfolios, you might get something like, let's say like Borrow. So Borrow got delisted, back in 2024, because it got privatized, it got acquired by another companies, and it got delisted. So in these cases, Pearler would just send through your buy transaction, but there won't be any sell transactions because that is an off-market transactions. So in this case, you have to make the adjustments in Sharesight. We have we have a help page that has quite a lot of corporate actions on how to handle some of the corporate actions. So you can kind of look it up, if the quantity doesn't match, and if there were any corporate actions when you own those shares, you can kind of look up on our help page. So this is Suncorp. This is just being one of the examples on return of capitals. So we have like the steps on how you should what you need to do on Sharesight just to kind of get the numbers correct. But if you can't find some of them in the help page, feel free. I guess the best way is just to reach out to our support team, and then we can kind of look into it and just kind of tell you how you should handle those. So those are for the corporate actions. I'll come back with the reconciled dividend transactions afterwards. So I'll quickly jump to the transfer assets. So transfer assets, I guess if you have holdings that you have previously transferred from another brokers into Pearler, those transactions doesn't come into Sharesight, because as I mentioned, Pearler only push whatever that you have bought or sell in Pearler. So one way you can do it, I guess I just kind of put it here, just kind of three options here, is that how can you, because obviously you need to get those into Sharesight to have the correct cost base, and you need the correct cost base because that's what you need when you do your tax returns and things, right? So the option one is I would say, if you have if you have something like this, then I guess the easiest way is to kind of contact your previous brokers. My understanding is normally the brokers will be required to, retain all your historical records of up to 7 years, even though you have, closed your account. So, you can call them or send them email, get all your buy and sell transactions. Or another way is to, contact them and get your average cost base for those holdings on the last day of the transfer before you move to Pearler, right? So again, just kind of use an examples, let's say your CBA. I'll use CBA as an example. Let's say a Commonwealth Banks, you have 200 shares instead of 100. So, because you bought the other 100 shares with another brokers before you move it to Pearler. So once you just need to get those informations from your previous brokers, and once you have those information, you can basically create an opening balance. So you can use that on the day of your transfer. So, let's say you transfer it to Sharesight in say August 2024. So you put that 100 as quantity, and you put in your cost base in here for that 100 shares. So that will kind of correct the numbers and have the correct cost and have the correct cost base for your combo of bank as well. So that's option one. If that, for whatever reason, if that's not possible, then options two will be the second best option, which is if you can work out when you bought those shares, I bought it in, say in the first week of July or in July, then this might be the best option, which is you look at the closing price of that week or that month and get an average of that numbers. Or the last option is to use a zero cost base. So zero cost base, I guess it is a safest options. But obviously I guess the thing with this is that means you're gonna be paying like a maximum capital gains. So those are kind of the three options if you have like transferred assets. But I would say option one normally should should handle should solve the problems. Now we've set up dividend reinvestment. So if you have dividend reinvestment, this is what you need to do in Sharesight. So again, using Commonwealth Bank as an examples. So when you're in Commonwealth Bank, there's tabs at the top. And on the edit holdings tab, you just need to turn on the automatic reinvest dividends. So you do this and then you apply changes. So once that's done, and then if we go back here, so you can see here, in this case, I got one dividends from CBA, and because I turn on the auto DRP, there's a reinvestments here. Obviously, it mentioned zero because the dividend I receive is not enough to buy one shares of CBA at that point in time. So you might have like multiple reinvestments, if you receive like multiple dividend reinvestments. So basically, this is what you need to do, just to turn on the auto DRPs and make sure the quantity for those reinvestments are correct. And then you just need to confirm them. So there could be cases where the reinvestment quantity might not be the same. Or, if you adds up all the quantity, let's say CPA 100 shares, but, in your Pearler, it might be 105 or something different. Then one thing you can kind of fix this is to go to your share registry. So in this case, CBA, the share registry for CBA is Link Market, or I guess they rebrand to MUFG. So you need to log into MUFG. In your MUFG account, it will show you all the transactions. So that include the shares, how much shares you get for each dividend reinvestment. So you just need to kind of match those numbers with what is in Sharesight. So you can kind of correct that by correcting the numbers in here. So if it's at 1, then you kind of put it here. So that's for dividend reinvestments. So once you make sure all your holdings are correct, all the quantities are correct, then you can kind of reconcile your dividends. So reconcile your dividends just means, double checking to make sure the dividends in Sharesight lines up with what you actually receive in your Pearler cash account or in your bank account. So again, example here, Commonwealth Bank, I got one dividends, I just need to make sure that, okay, I do receive $112.50 in my bank account. And once that's correct, I can, confirm that transaction as, being accurate. So, I mean, confirming transaction is just pretty much as a way to kind of tell yourself that, okay, I've checked this is correct. So in the future, I don't need to come back and check this again, right? Because I've already checked it. So you just need to confirm and that's fine. So this is like the parts where you just need to make sure everything is correct. So when you run the tax reports, the tax report will produce the correct numbers for you to do your tax return to give it to the ATO, right? So with the tax reports, there are two reports that I'll talk about. So the first one is the CGT report, and the other one is the taxable income report. So the CGT reports, so you can find all the reports under the reports tab, and just all the way down to tax and compliance section, and you can see there's a taxable and the CGT report in here. So if I run the CGT report, so I mean, as the name implies, the CGT report basically calculates, when you sell your shares, basically calculates what's your capital gains, or if it's a capital loss, and does all the calculations to derive what is your capital gains that you have to report to the ATO, right? So when you run this report, make sure that you set the period to the financial year that you want to do your tax returns, or in this case, the last financial year. And the report is separated into three sections. So there's like the short-term capital gain. So anything that you bought and sold in less than 12 months, and long-term capital gains, so anything beyond 12 months, and capital losses. So if you come down to the summary sections below the report, so Sharesight would calculate the short-term gains, and I'm used your capital loss to offset that amount. And then with the long-term gain and obviously you get your CGT concession amount of 50%, which is like the discount, remove from that and plus that together. So which is your short-term gain and long-term gain, that gives you your net capital gains. So that would be what you need to give it to your tax accountants, or if you do your own tax returns, put it into my tax. Now, a few things. One is, if you have any capital losses that you're carrying forward from previous financial years, there's options that you can put it in here. So these are losses carried forward. So if you have capital losses in 23, 24 financial years, let's say you have a capital loss of $2,000, you can put it in here, and that will get applied into the CGT report. So you can see here, there's numbers here, losses carried forward, $2,000 added on top of the capital losses to bring it to about $5,155. So yeah, so that will be added into the report to recalculate what is the capital gains again. So that's something that if you can use that. Another options that I guess the settings that you have in the CGT report is the cell allocation methods. So this basically tells Sharesight, if you have like multiple buys, and when you sell your shares, it is a partial selling, not a full selling. You can basically tell Sharesight basically how do you want to allocate your shares. So which parcels do you want to sell? So, there's a couple options where you can do like a FIFO, first in, first out. That sells the first parcel, last in, first out sells the last parcels, or, other options like maximize, minimize gain, or minimize CGT. So this is just something you can kind of play around and the number obviously would change accordingly. So that's basically just a CGT report. And if you're doing it for your tax accountants, there's options here. You can download the report into a PDF or as a spreadsheet and send it to your accountant. Obviously, another options is you can share your portfolios. So you can share a portfolio with your accountants. Read only is fine. You can share with your accountants, and then he can just access your portfolios and get the information that he or she needs to do a tax return. So that's in a nutshell of the CGT report. The other tax report is the taxable income report. So taxable income report. So taxable income report shows all the incomes and dividends that you receive for the financial years. So the report is sort of separate into local income and foreign incomes. So local incomes is all the dividends that you receive from ASX listed companies. Well, not always ASX listed companies, but companies that pay dividends in Australian dollars. And there are the local incomes are separated into non-trust and trust, but you don't really need to know too much about it. But basically, trust is mostly managed funds or ETFs. Those are considered as trust income, and whereas most of the ASX listed shares, like individual companies, are considered as non-trust income. And then you have the foreign income, which is dividends that you receive from if from US holdings or anything that is outside of ASX. So those would be fall under the foreign income. Now there's a breakdowns of all the information on those dividends. So the net amount, frank, unfranked, franking credits, because you need this information when you do your tax return. So right at the end of the taxable income report, there is something called the income tax return. So this has the labels, 11S, 11T. So this has the labels that you need to kind of basically copy and paste those numbers in those values into the tax forms. And so yeah, so again, the key thing here is you need to make sure that all the dividends kind of matches what is in your bank account before you run this report. Otherwise, you're gonna report all these numbers they are incorrect. And I guess one thing to kind of mention is most of Pearler customers have ETF or invest in ETF like Vanguard and whatnot. So we have this thing called the annual tax statement component. So normally you receive distributions or dividends from this ETF like 4 times a year. And at the end of the financial year, so I would say somewhere about now or next month, you will receive an annual tax statements, which kind of shows all the individual components, tax components. So I guess there are basically 2 options. Once you get the annual tax statements, you can manually enter it yourself. So if you click on enter annual tax statement components, so again, you can kind of follow the labels, which kind of shows up in the annual tax statements, and you can enter those values yourself. The other options is Sharesight would get all these tax component informations from share registry around, I'll say early September's or somewhere mid-September's. And once we have that, we will populate that into your Sharesight portfolios. So the options is if you want to do your tax return right now, you can follow your tax statements and put those numbers in here. But the other options is if you're gonna wait until September's, then Sharesight will auto-populate all those numbers in here. So basically, those are the 2 options that you can decide. And yeah, so that's the taxable income.
Sorry, Ricky. I think one of the guests had a related question.
Oh
I
yeah.
accidentally clicked answered live, but it was about where you can see the historical dividend residual balance from Thea.
Oh yes, okay. Yep. So okay, so this question is about where can you see your residue balance. All right. I'll just use a holding as an example. So I'll find one that has all right. Okay, CSL got CSL, we have dividends. All right. So okay, so I'll just gonna oh sorry, my bad. CSL doesn't have dividend reinvestments. Let's see which one. Let me Okay, so we'll use CBA. Okay, so there's two ways you can see the residue balance. One is if you want to see the most up-to-date residue balance. Let me see if okay, let's see here. Okay, yeah. So sorry, just try to get this. All right. So you can see the DRP balance when you go into the holdings under the summary. So under summary, you can see there's your investments. So it shows your current value, quantity, cost base. So you can see there's a DRP balance 112 and 50 cents here. So that is like it will constantly update as it goes. Another way you can see that is in your dividends. So if I open this one, so basically this is how Sharesight will calculate, right? So you say, you receive $112.50. There's no residue balance before that because this is the first dividends that I receive. That's the payment. Number of shares 0 because the DRP price is 149. So obviously that's higher than 112. So Sharesight doesn't reinvest anything for you. Therefore, this 112 and 50 cents get carried forward. So next time when I receive another dividends from CBA, again, this will add on top of that dividends payments, and then it will recalculate how many shares you should get based on the DRP price at that point in time, and it will just kind of update these reinvestment totals, and then it will calculate the residue balance. So this is where you can see your residue balance on each dividends. But if you want the up-to-date one, you can just see it on the summary thing. So one thing with the DRP balance is you want to make sure it kind of matches what is in your dividend statements because sometimes this might not seem like something like really important, but because every time you get dividends, this will be slightly off. So it sort of like accumulates, and then going forward, if you have DRPs, you will become like, you'll always be incorrect. So you need to make sure that this one is kind of correct. Wait, let me see if there's any other questions. How will we know once I have the information to save us entering the components manually? Okay, so the question is, when will you guys know that Sharesight has the information? So when we get the text component for the ETF information from the share registry, I mean, normally we will send out an email to all our users that we got those information. But the other one where you can easily check is there's a what do you call it, like a sort of a light bulb icons over here, and then when you hover your cursor over that, it would just say that that we already have the most updated. Wait, hang on, let me take that back. We will have that information, and then we'll send out the email. If you have confirmed your dividends, it will kind of show a light bulb saying that, okay, we have the latest information that is available. And then if you reset your dividends, those information will get populated in there. But if you never confirm your dividends, so, in this case is already confirmed, but, if I just kind of reset this, so if it's unconfirmed, then Sharesight will automatically push that information into your portfolio and update it as is. So yeah, so if you confirm it, you will get an icon that says, oh, we have the information now. Do you want to kind of reset the dividends so the new information can push in? But if it's unconfirmed, then Sharesight will just automatically update the text components. Ooh, all right. So yeah, I mean, if you guys got any more questions about the dividends or the tax components, just put it in. I can happy to answer that. So again, this is just a key dates. I think most of you guys already know 30th of June, end of financial year. The AMIT adjustments. So that is when we receive the tax components from share registry. Again, normally around September's, but the timing is a bit hard to be exact. So we just put it as 12th of September 2025. Oops. And the tax filing deadline for individuals will be on the 31st of October. And so that's kind of sums up the tax report in Sharesight. I'll just quickly go through something that you might use Sharesight for outside of tax. So one is we have this for quite a while, which is the exposure report. So if you own like ETF or multiple ETF or multiple ETF plus direct shares, or investing in individual companies, this exposure report is quite useful. So basically, what the exposure report does is it tells you how many basically it tells you your exposure of how many I guess how much investments that you have in each kind of shares. So I'll just use this as an example. So let's say you might own CBA shares directly, and you also have CBA shares from ETF in say VAS or some other ETF as well. So this report kind of tells you as a whole how many, I guess, what is your total exposure to each holdings. So for example, Amazon shares, I own it directly in these portfolios, but I also own it through iShares S&P 500. So again, it kind of tells you on aggregate, what is that as a percentage of your total portfolios. So it kind of helps you to kind of make it easier to get an understanding of your risk, because in some cases people might thought, okay, I own some shares, I have like 6% of these shares in my portfolios, but you might not be aware that you actually have a lot of these shares in other ETF as well. So this kind of give you what are those underlying shares that you own in each of your ETF. So it kind of give you an understanding of what's your actual kind of true exposure. So for example, RIA real estate .com. So if I own RIA directly, and I have RIA is in VAS as well. So this report is kind of useful, especially if you have like multiple ETF on top of like owning direct shares as well. So it's just gonna give you understanding to make it easier for you to kind of manage your portfolios. You might need to rebalance if you have like high exposure to certain shares. And you also have the options to kind of grouping. So in some cases, you might have like overexposure into certain industry, or have exposure to like certain markets that you might not feel comfortable, and you can use this report as a starting point to kind of rebalance your portfolios. So yeah, so this is again something that a lot of our customers use it, and they like it because it gives them an idea of what they actually owns. So yeah, and yeah, so that's in a nutshell what the exposure report is. And the last one is just, right now we have a Pearler pricing. This is like $99 on the yearly plan. And give you unlimited holdings and tax reportings and sync transactions, and there's a whole other features that you can use as well. And so yeah, so I think any questions?
I thought I'd just touch on briefly a couple of things. Thank you so much, Ricky, for touching on some of the common questions that we get at Pearler about Sharesight. I think he's covered basically all of them. I think with the pricing, I just wanted to quickly ask, since we were just there, does that support multiple accounts as well?
The Pearl pricing is only for one portfolios.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
one portfolio, unlimited holdings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you do have more than one portfolio at Pearler, you can upgrade with Sharesight's plans because we do provide syncing support for that. It will just be on a different Sharesight plan. And the only other thing is that I wanted to mention is that so the integration with Sharesight that Pearler has is only to support direct ASX and US investing on Pearler. We do have other investment products like our micro product as well as our new Pearler super product. So those cannot be synced with Sharesight. It's just for direct investments. AU and AU and US. So yeah, just wanted to quickly mention that, but I'll let Ricky get back to the questions.
Yep. Thank you. Um, oh yeah, so I think there's a couple of questions on the Pearl pricing. You don't need a code to get the Pearl pricing. So when you set up the integration between your shares, so your Pearl account with and Sharesight, the code should automatically get applied to your Sharesight account. So I mean, once you have your Sharesight account, if you goes to, let's say, where is it, plans and billings, and then if you go to change plan, generally it should say something like $99 per plan, or there should be something like a per plan over here that say $99. But if you don't see that, um, contact support, and then we can kind of apply that code for you, and you'll be able to see that $99. But I would say once you connect, you should be able to see it.
Yeah, I'll just quickly jump in here as well, and feel free to message us, our support team as well at Pearler. But I'm pretty sure when I went through quickly before this webinar, once you've connected to Sharesight, it will actually pop up on Pearler's end with a banner with the $99 offer as well. So it should be pretty visible right on there.
Yep. And I guess another question is the fee tax deductible? We'll say yes, but please check with your accountant. But that's what we put out. It is tax deductible. But just to be sure, um, not a financial advice, but check with your accountant. All right, let me see. Does the Pearl pricing include reports with ETFs previously bought from another broker where the previous broker has also been connected to Sharesight? Okay, so the question is, does this Pearl $99 include reports where the ETF was bought from previously from another broker? So the answer is yes. So again, just use ComSec as an example. If you are previously using ComSec on Sharesight, and then now you kind of transition into to Pearler, those transactions, basically the buy and sell that you did with ComSec, will still stays in your Sharesight account. And now if you kind of connect that portfolios to Pearler, it will still be in your report. So anything that is in your Sharesight account, even outside Pearler, will still be in there. So as long we have those data and information, your report will include those information as well. So yeah, so the report is basically depends on how long the information that you have. So you can add information before you were with Perler, and it will be in the tax report as well. So as long as you have the information in there, Sharesight will generate those the tax report based on those information.
And you can also, Ricky, if I'm not wrong, you can also sync in from other brokers as well for transferred assets, like
Um,
using, did you guys have a tool before that you can use to sync in data from other brokers? Or maybe someone already had a Sharesight account before joining Pearler, and
Yeah,
then
yeah, there is. So we do have quite a lot of ways on, we support like track confirmations or CSV file import for other brokers as well. So as I mentioned, if you have like transfer assets from other brokers, and if you manage to get your buy and sell history from your previous brokers, you can easily import that into Sharesight as well without any manual data entry or something like that. So yeah, so it's pretty easy as well.
Yeah. So, just for example, like someone already had a Sharesight portfolio set up before joining Pearler, and then they can sync their data from Pearler, and then the Pearler data will get merged with the original data they already had in there.
Yes,
That's
correct. Yeah.
possible, right? Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah. Because I think I suppose from a customer perspective, I guess as long the tax entity is the same, regardless of the brokers, I think that's what you want to have that seamless kind of continuity for your portfolios, whichever broker that you use. So yeah, so basically, you can have like multiple brokers in a single portfolios, or if you have used other brokers previously, and you can have this kind of continuity between when you move from brokers to brokers. Yeah. See. The Pearler and Sharesight offer, I mean, someone asking, is that a one-off thing? So no. So that Pearler and Sharesight is $99 a year is a continuous thing. So you won't be getting a different pricing after that. So, um, Zach, can you kind of reach out to us? If you have link, if you can't see that $99, can you reach out to support at sharesight.com, and then we'll look into it and we'll apply that code. Okay, so Charlie, I've shares held with Contact, but I've transitioned to Pearler for the new purchases. I haven't used Sharesight before. Can I register both Comsat registered shares and Pearler registered shares to the same account? Yes, the answer is yes. So you can register both of those shares into Sharesight, because I think I assume these are the same tax entity, as in that you're not changing, like, from individual names or to joint names or to company names or things like that. Then yes, you can. So if you can get all your buy and sell shares from Comsat, you can import it into Sharesight, and then link Perler into Sharesight as well. So that will kind of create a continuation. So when you run the report will have a complete history of all your buy and sells from both Perler and Comsat. So that will give you a correct calculation on your CGT and dividends. Yeah. Yeah, so for anyone that cannot see the $99 per plan, send us an email at support@sharesight.com, and then we can just kind of look into it and apply the code to your account. Cool. Any other questions? No questions? I mean, if anyone have any questions later, can always like send Cathy email at Pearler, or send me an email support@sharesight.com. More than happy to more than happy to assist you with any sort of like questions about uh about anything, I guess. So yeah.
On life.
Oh yeah, okay, here's one. In September, along with AMA, didn't get confirmed, or is menu checking? Okay, so the question is, in September, the AMI, along with the AMIT, do the dividends get confirmed, or is the manual checking the goal? Sorry if I misinterpret the questions. So I guess when we get the AMIT information from the share registry, we will auto populate that into your account, assuming that you didn't manually enter and confirm your dividends. Then we will auto populate those information into your Sharesight. And again, it is still kind of good to kind of double check that against your annual tax statements. I would say in 99% of the cases, it should line up with your annual tax statements. But again, it's always good to sort of like double check just to make sure that the number lines up. So, comparing the labels, the numbers between each labels just to make sure that they are correct. So that's always like a good advice to kind of double check, right? But in my experience, in most cases, 99% of the time it should be accurate down to maybe 1 cent difference, due to, those, due to like rounding up, rounding down. So there could be like 1 cent difference. Um, if you have a share side, okay, so another question is back to Pearler pricing. So if you already have a share side account and then you join Pearler, will you be eligible for the $99 offer? Yes. So once we kind of apply that, once we apply that coupon code, you will get the $99. If you already pay the yearly standard subscription fees, just reach out to us, and then we can kind of refund the difference. Are there any existing new share side features on the roadmap for 2025, 2026? We have a number of features coming out. In fact, we actually have one that is about to come out. I mean, it's on beta right now. I can show you. But just to kind of just put it out there, this is not on the Perler plan yet. So we have something called the future income report. This is on the investors. Sorry, this is on the standard and the premium plan for now. But I think it would be something very, very useful for for if you are like, I guess especially if you are into ETF, if you are into like dividends, or I guess fire movements. So that sort of thing. So basically the future income report, basically what it does is it estimates your dividends or income that you'll be receiving for the next 12 to 36 months. So yeah, so you can see kind of gives you some idea of what's the dividends that you'll be getting every month based on by looking at the history of those holdings that you own and the frequency of the payment and the growth of those dividends. So I just think this is like a kind of sort of like a handy kind of reports that, if you have some sort of like, oh, I need to hit like a monthly income goals of these numbers, or a yearly income goals of this number. I think this report is kind of quite good for you to kind of analyze and see, how can you, I guess, increase your monthly dividends and things like that. So it will show you individual dividends estimate, for the next 1 to 3 years, things like if you have like VAS or IVV, they pay like 4 times a year. So you can see those as well. So I think it's something really, really useful, and a lot of our customers have been asking for a long time. So finally we have it. So this is one report there. We have couple other small changes coming up, but always happy if you guys have any like feedback or suggestions on how to make Sharesight better. So, but this is like one of the key ones that we have. All right, another questions. This is a tax report. Not sure if this answer. There is a dividend on the tax report for first of all. Is there a valid issue? I don't see dividends on the tax report for 1st of July 2025. Is there a valid entry? As I don't see this. Okay, so there's a questions about dividends on the 1st of July 2025, but you can't seem to see that on the share registry. I believe you might be talking about some of your ETF distributions. So I guess maybe you can reach out to, okay, yes, okay, thank you. So I think you can reach out to maybe support, but my guess is you might be looking at let me see here. So if I go to reports, so okay, so most of the ETF like VAS, they pay dividends. I mean, they'll normally there was one dividends at the end of the financial year. So normally that will be around somewhere at the end of June. So what is it? Okay, so I think you're talking about this one, right? So yeah, so in some cases, so the reasons why this 1st of July 2025 shows up here instead of a previous financial year because we look at when it is when you actually receive it. So basically, share registry is saying this is attributed to this financial year. That's why it's appearing on here, even though you might not see in the share registry. So yeah. Are there any restriction on the Sharesight Pearler plan in terms of the reports available to access compared to the other existing Sharesight plan? There will be some, I mean, some other plans will have some reports that is not available on the Pearler plan, but um, but the tax report, you will have access to all the tax reports. Um, but there will be some reports that might not be that will not be available on the Pearler plan. So, the one I mentioned is the future income report. And there are a few other reports that is not on the Pearler plan, like for example, the multi-period, the drawdown risk. So yeah, so there will be a few reports that is not on the Pearler plan. I guess as to whether are they really will you actually be using it? I guess it depends, right? Because some of these report, like for example, like drawdown risk, I'm not even sure like if there's like something, Pearler will, I mean, if you will find it useful. But I would say the most common ones like the diversity, the exposure reports, and all the tax reports, performance report, yeah, I mean, in my understanding, those are the reports that most of our customers normally use. They will be on the Pearler plan. So yeah. So, but of course, I would say when when you sign up, there's like a sort of like a demo portfolios. So that is something you can kind of use. And in the demo portfolio, you have access to all the reports. So you can kind of, see if those might be something that you be find helpful or useful, and then if you can decide, if you choose to upgrade to the standard plan or the premium plan. um okay, questions on the $99 plan. Polar $99 plan is essentially the starter plan. Yes and no. I would say yes, as in the Polar $99 plan is similar to the starter plan in the sense that you get one portfolios, but it is better than the starter plan because our current starter plan, you have a limit of 30 holdings, but whereas the Polar plan, there's no restrictions. So essentially, you can have as many holdings as you need in the Polar plan without any restriction. So that's a slight difference there. But other than that, in terms of like report access, it is the same as the starter plan. Uh, okay, so the Perler, yes, you're right. So the Perler plan doesn't include two portfolios, so it's only one portfolios. But in saying that, if you are just using it for yourself. And then if you have two brokers or more brokers, you can always use a single portfolio to do that. But yeah, in some cases, if you have like your own account, a joint account, or some other types of different accounts, then yes, you will need more than one portfolios. Oh, I think that's pretty much it, right? So I guess we can wrap it up here. But again, like I say, if you guys have any questions, feel free to send us email. more than happy to kind of get back to you as fast as we can.
Yep, same here at Pearler. Live chat or help@pearler.com. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for joining. See you guys.